Hi there, my name is Ryan Rogers, and I am an Assistant Choir Director at North Shore Senior High in Galena Park ISD, located on the east side of Houston, Texas. I am excited to welcome you to the second installment of Real Solutions to Virtual Problems, a collection of resources and ideas for virtual delivery of ensemble-based music instruction. Throughout today's session, our focus will be on continuing musical growth during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, these tools will remain relevant and useful to music educators beyond this temporary circumstance. You know, whenever we finally come back from spring break 2020. Today's discussion will include resources and plausible solutions for virtual rehearsals. It also will be useful in a variety of instructional arrangements, whether your district relies on an in-person, virtual, or hybrid model. It's also going to be focused on an ensemble-based instruction, specifically on how we can hear and evaluate every musician's progress regularly. Today's discussion is not a one-stop shop for rolling out virtual instruction today, as implementing these tools takes some practice for ensembles and planning for directors. It also is not inclusive of vital social-emotional learning, community building, non-musical teaching, general music-based instruction, etc. that is a necessity during virtual instruction. It is also not universally applicable to every program, as only you know your musicians, yourself, and what expectations are reasonable in your circumstances. It most certainly is not exhaustive. There are many more resources available, more of which were actually covered in the previous installment of this presentation, which is reviewable at realsolutionstovirtualproblems.com. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, today's discussion is not a long-term substitute for live performance art. Nothing we do virtually can truly replicate our day-to-day instruction. Rather, our focus will be on growing students' musicianship during this challenging time and supplementing our regular instructional models in the future. Before we jump into our overview of these tools, it is important to provide a bit of background on the context in which they were developed. North Shore Senior High has a total of 4,537 students, 81.7% of which qualify for free or reduced lunch. Our student body is diverse, at 70.1% Hispanic, 24.2% African American, 3.8% white, 1% Asian, 0.7% two or more races, 0.2% American Indian, and 0% Pacific Islander. While we are approaching one-to-one Chromebooks in GPISD, we were not quite there when the year began fully virtual. Now, while the district remained virtual until October 19th with a modified virtual schedule, we currently operate on a traditional in-person schedule. Virtual learners participate in class synchronously over Google Meet, while all assignments are available asynchronously on Google Classroom. Since North Shore is composed of 3 campuses, a 9th grade campus, a 10th grade campus, and the senior high, we do have to balance differences between each in terms of schedule, grading, and administrative expectations. As a result, our approach must be flexible and adaptable to accommodate students' needs and administration's expectations. And this makes it ideal for stealing and repurposing. All of the solutions offered in today's session fall along a spectrum of approaches. On one end, we have a more traditional ensemble-based presentation approach, including virtual performance goals and literacy assignments. On the other, we have a more non-traditional participatory approach, including informal music making and general music style activities. Where your approach falls on the spectrum depends on your program's individual needs. Some things to consider in making this determination include student engagement. What can you reasonably expect your students to accomplish and complete in a week or a grading period? Access limitations. What devices are your students using and what are those devices capable of? Grading expectations. Can you assign daily work or are you limited to a certain number of assignments each week? Scheduling limitations as well. Also, the ratio of face-to-face and virtual students, etc. Throughout your consideration of these resources, it is also important to remember that all of these elements seem to be in a constant state of flux during this pandemic. As with these constantly changing circumstances, it is never too late to change your approach. Finally, It's okay to try something new, even if it fails miserably. When the North Shore Chamber Choir first began using the real-time music solutions software we will discuss shortly, things crashed and burned. Computers suddenly had no audio drivers, webcams were strobing nonstop, nothing was working the way we expected it to, and everything was on fire. But persistence is truly the name of the game here. The students and I all understood that we were working in uncharted territory, experimenting with new tools that were not likely to work perfectly from the outset. Yet, once we were all on the same page, we were all able to learn from the experience, and with a bit of determination and trial and error, we were able to make things work. First, let's examine some solutions that are geared toward a more presentation-oriented approach. I've divided these into two subcategories. We have virtual performance goals, which include Soundtrap virtual rehearsals, a streamlined virtual choir system I developed in collaboration with All Saints Episcopal Church in Atlanta, the North Shore real-time music solutions setup, and a Soundtrap solo project we implemented during the fall at North Shore. In addition, we will examine two solutions to meet literacy goals, including North Shore's asynchronous level up system and Galena Park High School's daily drills synchronous system. Soundtrap virtual rehearsals are among our most important tools this year at North Shore. Soundtrap is an online collaborative digital audio workstation, or DAW. Think Audacity, that syncs to the cloud. There is a free version as well as a paid educational version, with the key differences between the two including Google Classroom integration, the ability to create isolation bubble assignments, and a walled garden to keep students from interacting with those outside your program. Neither version requires a download on a computer, meaning Soundtrap works on Chromebooks. Hallelujah! Apps are also available for both iPhone and Android. In addition, no equipment is needed beyond headphones, which should ideally be wired rather than Bluetooth. In a virtual asynchronous rehearsal, the rehearsal component from the director is pre-recorded. The students then record themselves participating on their own. Now, the challenge, of course, is that numerous singers' audio must be aligned with the rehearsal track in a user-friendly interface. This format presents several key challenges and some key benefits. First, the challenges. The rehearsal is fixed. There is no element of responsiveness from the director. This means that we must anticipate problems and attempt to mitigate them while recording. Feedback for singers is also no longer immediate, and we have a limited ability to address artistic elements, balance, blend, etc. Despite these limitations, the director is able to listen back to the resultant rehearsal recording for later review. In addition, the director can isolate individual students within the choir to provide specific feedback by muting the other students' tracks. Follow-up lessons can then be tailored to specific groups of students. For example, a Soundtrap rehearsal could be created just for those who missed a particular rhythm, or just for those who have difficulty navigating between vocal registers in a particular passage. Finally, rehearsals can and probably should remain short and to the point. We can address one or two specific challenges thoroughly without taking up much time at all. If you've ever had to grade a large number of recorded assignments, you know that less is definitely more here. Here's a quick sample of a virtual rehearsal conducted during the first installment of Real Solutions to Virtual Problems, presented through AMC Music. We will now move on to Peter Lutkin's The Lord Bless You and Keep You, measures 1 through 5. Here are your starting pitches. 1 and 2 and breathe.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you.
Included at realsolutionstovirtualproblems.com are 2 sample weekly lesson outlines, one geared toward advanced groups and one toward beginner groups. The advanced track features more self-guided learning opportunities, some outside of class work, and the opportunity to spend class time facilitating and prepping new concepts. The beginner track allows for greater structure and scaffolding, the use of class time to complete assignments, and greater opportunity to reinforce key concepts throughout the week. Virtual rehearsals are great for helping our students grow musically. But what about that elusive alternative to an in-person performance, which we are all so in love with producing, the virtual choir? Well, if you head on over to virtualchoirhelp.com, you can find a link to a YouTube playlist which demonstrates from start to finish how to implement a production system I have developed in collaboration with Kirk Rich of All Saints Episcopal Church in Atlanta. This audio-first approach streamlines the collection and editing process to take musical responsibility off of the editor and place it back where it belongs, on the musicians. While my YouTube walkthrough provides much greater detail, here's a quick overview. First, the reference tracks are recorded along with an overlay guide by the director. These are then consolidated into one master reference track and loaded into Soundtrap. Singers join the project and record their parts using wired headphones. This ensures alignment with one another before editing even begins, making the singers responsible for precision rather than the editors. The editor then downloads each track and imports them for editing, mixing, and mastering in Logic Pro X using Melodyne Studio, RX8 Standard, and Ozone 9 Advanced. After editing, a master track is exported and 4 loud clicks are added to the beginning. For the video component, the musicians sing along with this track without headphones, ensuring that all 4 guide clicks are present in the recording. Videos are then uploaded to Google Drive folders and imported into Final Cut Pro. The editor then aligns these by the guide clicks in each singer's waveform and implements various video walls to taste. Kirk and I also put together a proposed in-person recording and editing station, which can assist singers with tech difficulties, including a Scarlett 2i2 interface, a condenser microphone, and an iMac Pro with the Apple Pro Apps bundle for education, as well as the aforementioned plugins installed. Altogether, I am able to complete high-quality audio editing for a standard 3-verse hymn with 12 singers in about 4 hours using this process. Further details are available at virtualchoirhelp.com, including free Logic Pro bus presets I developed using stock plugins which are specifically designed to clean up lower quality audio and mask timing issues with a tasteful reverb setting. In addition to these asynchronous rehearsal and performance tools, we have also made use of Real-Time Music Solutions Rehearsal Live Share software as a synchronous solution for rehearsals. This software, which I refer to as RMS for short, is essentially a live virtual rehearsal via video conference and costs $99.99 for a director account with unlimited free student accounts. The software is able to align all the singer's audio while rehearsing using MIDI data to calculate and account for each person's latency in real time. From the director's perspective, one need only push play on a pre-recorded MIDI or accompaniment track and the software does the rest, allowing you to hear the full ensemble perfectly aligned with additional control over volume and panning of each individual. Now, the main drawback here is that singers cannot hear one another while rehearsing, since the software must change to one-way audio once the director pushes play. The RMS setup we have put together at North Shore consists of 11 computers in various practice rooms and offices with the full RMS suite installed on each, plus my personal computer which I use to run rehearsals. While it has not been released at the time of this filming, RMS has announced that they will soon be adding support for Chromebooks and Android devices in addition to Mac, PC, and iOS. Using our current setup, students with currently compatible devices join from home, while those without come to campus to participate in isolation rooms. This prevents any possibility of COVID-19 spread while rehearsing, though rigorous safety protocols must be followed before, during, and afterward to ensure that any potential for spread during arrival or dismissal is mitigated. The North Shore Chamber Choir have been great sports in serving as my guinea pigs in developing and ironing out the system. While we still have some technology challenges to work through from time to time, I have divided the group into 2 teams which rehearse separately using RMS successfully. This has allowed us to prepare one song, Usberg's Musica, which you are hearing now, almost exclusively over RMS. We recorded this song using my virtual choir method, and you can check out the full version at our website, nsshchoir.com. In addition to these collaborative projects, we wanted to ensure that our students continue to grow as independent musicians during this time. For this purpose, we developed a system for self-guided learning of solos using Soundtrap, which has proven to be time efficient for directors and adequately structured for students. We put together 10 Class 3 treble solos and 8 tenor bass solos from which students were able to choose. And by the end of the project, students had a long-term portfolio of their learning with checkpoints throughout the sequence. To accomplish this, Soundtrap assignments were preloaded with spoken and sung words and solfege recorded by our voice teachers for each song. Every 2 weeks, students would unmute the next track in the learning sequence, practice a little bit, and submit a recording. This constructivist approach to solos has empowered our students to self-teach their music in pursuit of our ultimate goal of developing them into lifelong independent musicians. Even after the COVID-19 pandemic has ended, I would continue to use this process because of the ease of access to the platform for students, the ease of grading for directors, and the greater structure this approach afforded due to the added scaffolding necessitated in this virtual format. I feel that after having prepared their solos by these means, our students are ready to take on more involved choral repertoire in the spring. In addition to the 4 solutions for our virtual performance goals we have already discussed, I am excited to share with you 2 approaches used within GPISD to virtually accomplish our literacy goals. The first of these is the North Shore Asynchronous Sight Reading Initiative, which relies on the level up system that Enrique Collazo, Adam Bendorf, and Cody Morris presented at TMEA a few years back. In short, we use a series of sight reading resources to create levels our students must achieve in order to qualify for higher level ensembles the following year, promoting individual accountability for sight reading. The format of our virtual adaptation of this system is similar to that used for the solo projects we just overviewed. We preloaded tonic triads for all major keys into a Soundtrap project, with each muted on their own track. After consulting a 9-week schedule of exercises to choose from, the students simply unmute the appropriate key and record their level up attempt in Soundtrap every 2 weeks. They submit these on Google Classroom, where we can either level them up or create an additional track where we record ourselves providing feedback as we would if they were leveling up in person. This allows us to keep all their recordings as well as our feedback in one centralized project for the students so that they can return to it at a later date. For their next attempt, the students simply mute their old track and add another below. While this asynchronous solution is a great fit for our program, I am excited to welcome Daniel Ponce and Enrique Barrera from Galena Park High School, who will share their own synchronous model.
Hello, my name is Enrique Barrera. I am the Assistant Choir Director at Galena Park High School.
Hi, and I'm Daniel Ponce, also from Galena Park High School. When it comes to the sight reading process, we tend to use Jamboards that have an exercise on each board that we're reading that day. The kids that are face-to-face here with us will chant and sing as we normally do. The kids that are virtual will have the opportunity to record their sight reading as we sing by opening the Soundtrap assignment as they're watching the presentation. They can record after we are done on their own time, or they can actually go back and review the recorded lesson and sing with us at that time. So here we have the classroom window, and under sight reading we have created an assignment. You will notice there is a Soundtrap and a Google Jamboard link here for the kids to utilize. Students simply add a track and begin singing their sight reading. They can sing any of these melodies.
As far as warm-ups went, for our virtual students, we expected them to submit a weekly Soundtrap recording. For our solfege warm-ups, we would also create either a Jamboard or a Google slide with fundamental drills, exercises from the SmartBook. Along with this assignment, we also provided them a Jamboard. Here they can use tools like highlighters. I would encourage them to highlight their part so they could just very easily come here and draw around their part. They could use the tool text box to type in their solfege, and then they would go on to the sight readings and do the same thing there. Then they have the Jamboard pulled up, they can use that to reference, and then they start recording. So. That was one of the ways that we would do warm-up Soundtrap assignments.
We tend to have students record sections of a piece of music that we've been working on. All of our music is on Jamboards. We tend to put 2 systems on each Jamboard, but since we're recording in small segments, they only are required to shuffle through a few Jamboards. Kids who are virtual will have the option to sing it with us while we're singing live here with the face-to-face kids. Again, they will be able to do it on their own time to the piano track we've supplied on Soundtrap, or they can review the lesson and record at that time. When we're introducing a song for a first impression for the students, you'll notice here we show them a video of this particular piece. Of course, we ask questions using Pear Deck, where students can respond by dragging the icon. In this particular case, we were wondering if they thought the tempo was too fast or too slow. And of course, we asked questions that they can actually write in and answer. When we are ready to record the songs, you see we do create an assignment, and you have here one of the sections, and this is what they look like. This is one particular one. Children don't get weary, children don't get weary, children don't get weary. And they're using this particular item of Jamboard for their music as they're recording. This particular recording is one of our non-varsity freshman boys. Some of the students tell us they want to sing with the track. Others tell us they want to sing without the track. That is at their discretion.
At the beginning of the school year, it was challenging to shift our students' mindsets into this new way of doing choir. It took a few times of me having to reteach and provide clear instructions. But we found that the more often we did it, the more they would get acquainted with the computer programs, and in turn, our submission rates increased over time. For those of you that are looking for different ways of keeping your virtual students engaged, this seemed to work for us. We hope that this was helpful to you in some way, and best of luck to you on the rest of the school year. Happy virtual TMEA convention.
Up to this point in today's session, we have focused on approaches which are presentation-based and seek to emulate a more traditional core classroom in a virtual context. However, these resources can all be used to design a less traditional, participation-oriented approach as well. While we have not relied on these at North Shore to the same extent that we have utilized our presentation-based systems, we found that our students needed an informal creative outlet to scratch that musical itch we all know far too well right now. We have used a few different informal music making assignments this year in order to accomplish this, several of which are available free of charge at realsolutionstovirtualproblems.com. The first informal music making assignment we used this semester was simple. Go play with Soundtrap's extensive library of loops and create your own composition featuring at least 5 different loops, at least 10 measures long. While some of our students did submit the bare bones minimum requirement for this assignment, of course, others surpassed our wildest expectations. I had students turn in their own radio-ready covers of songs, the opening to a musical a student was writing, a rap diss track a student wrote about how I don't like Oreos, a cappella arrangements of pop songs, a vocal duet accompanied by a formal score with piano, and much, much more. In fact, you have already been listening to many of these compositions, arrangements, and covers as the background music for this session. To say that I am overwhelmed by our students' creativity on these projects is such an understatement, and I cannot recommend enough allowing your students time to explore their own musical interests in this regard. Check out this work sample that was submitted for this assignment. while this exploratory, informal music making assignment was tons of fun, we also explored some informal music making which had greater structure and scaffolding in Perfect Harmony, our show choir. We recycled and repurposed a project I created while student teaching, wherein students built their own arrangement of a predetermined song using some prescribed parameters. We walked through this process with a song as a class, and then students formed their own groups to create their own arrangement of a song of their choice or compose something totally new. Here's an excerpt of one of these projects.
Such a tragedy. You want all these things in life, but you can't treat me right. It's gonna be your time. You're gonna feel what I felt when you turn around. Everyone will be gone. Don't come running back, 'cause I did all that I could. Don't have to hide from the truth, 'cause you betrayed a friend. You betrayed a friend, yeah. I'm so overwhelmed, devastated and depressed in this void. Now that you're with her, you'll never be the same. You'll never understand my pain. It's gonna be your time. You're gonna feel what I felt when you turn around. Everyone will be gone. Don't come running back, 'cause I did all that I could. Don't have to hide from the truth, 'cause you betrayed a friend. You betrayed a friend.
My favorite thing about this project was that there was a free collaboration between face-to-face and virtual students via Soundtrap and Google Meet breakout rooms. The tools that we used leveled the playing field between the virtual and in-person learners, allowing for true collaboration to take place and for groups to form freely with a mixture of both instructional arrangements. Finally, I would be remiss if I failed to mention the limitless number of general music style activities that can augment and enrich our instruction during this time, including guided listening assignments on platforms such as Edpuzzle, our own series of music theory moments embedded in our daily slide presentation at North Shore, and much, much more. Do not forget to utilize the fantastic databases of resources organized by Oak and TMEA as you continue to explore what your program's needs are and how best to meet them during this time. Through the use of new software and novel ways of employing existing technology, we can provide digital instruction and hold virtual rehearsals in a manner that allows for efficacy in evaluating and encourages students to continue their musical growth despite unideal circumstances. While we may not be able to maintain the same performance-oriented goals to which we are accustomed, these resources can allow us to effectively deliver both traditional ensemble-based instruction and non-traditional participatory music making virtually in pursuit of our ultimate goal of developing our students into lifelong independent musicians. Thank you for tuning in to this second installment of Real Solutions to Virtual Problems. Before this session concludes, I would like to thank some important folks, including the team at North Shore, Enrique Collazo, Adam Bendorf, and Jade Pinares for all their assistance in preparation for this year. Sam Harris for his visionary leadership as the Fine Arts Director in Galena Park ISD. Daniel Ponce and Enrique Barrera for their assistance in this presentation. Dr. Kirk Rich for his assistance and support in developing our virtual choir production process, and all those who assisted in testing these resources, including my roommates who put up with technology strewn all over our apartment. Last but most certainly not least, I would like to thank any and all North Shore Choir students for embracing the new and keeping music as an important part of their lives through these tough times. Thank you.